Hello and welcome to this all-new episode of the Fairfax Sports Report. I'm your host, Monica Moore, and as usual, we have a great episode for you tonight. But before we get to all of that, we want to thank the folks that help make this program possible. First of all, our good friends at CCI Screen Printing. For all of your screen printing needs, you can contact them at 703-978-0257. Also, don't forget that you can get copies of this show as well as copies of all the games that we produce from throughout the region at Pressbox Video. Their website is www.pressboxvideo.com. Special thanks to our teammates at Triple Edge Lacrosse. For your endless summer of lacrosse, you can contact Triple Edge at 703-392-6177. Don't forget to check out our website at www.fairfaxsportsnetwork.com, where you can get news and scores as well as our video vault feature that has interviews and highlights from games throughout the region. And you can become a fan of the Fairfax Sports Network on our Facebook page. Finally, don't forget that you can contact us, send us news, notes, and story ideas, and we'll try to get as many on the air as possible. Well, before we jump into our Triple Edge Lacrosse Report, a couple of news and notes from throughout the region. First of all, congratulations to Dean Mutati, the former T.C. Williams standout. He also played at the University of Maryland. He recently signed as a free agent with the Green Bay Packers, so great story coming out of the region. He'll join Chip Vaughn, who recently signed with the New Orleans Saints. So a couple of athletes from this class going on to play in the NFL. Also, the AP recently announced their all-state basketball teams for this year, and a couple of faces from throughout the region making those lists, so we want to congratulate them. Tiara Ruffin-Pratt, no surprise, from T.C. Williams on the first team, along with two young ladies on the second team, Maisha Goodwin and Tracy King, one from Edison, one from Mount Vernon, so very happy to see the National District players making those lists. And then on the boys' side, E.J. Jenkins and Dominic Mora both making the first team, and then Chantilly's John Manning on the second team. And while we're congratulating athletes who've recently gotten great distinctions, the Gatorade Girls State Soccer Player of the Year was recently announced, and it is none other than Jenna Richmond from Centerville getting the award. And finally, the Virginia High School League recently announced, this is some football news, that the Division V and Division VI championships will be held this year at the University of Virginia Scott Stadium. Of course, last year they were at Virginia Tech, so moving back this year to the University of Virginia. Okay, well, that's it for news and notes. I'm delighted to be joined this week, as always, by Dennis Stewart in the studio. Welcome, Coach.
Great to be here, Monica. If I could just tell a little Scott Stadium story.
Absolutely.
Mike Caravana, who was a four-time All-American lacrosse player at UVA. He was the coach at Denison University. I coached with him for 8 years. Kind of helped raise his son in Ohio. And Nick had been in Ohio for so long. I'd taken him to some Ohio State games, got him to meet Coach Tressel, took him right up close and personal. And Nick had turned into quite a Buckeye fan. And Coach Caravana came back to Virginia, took Nick into Lane Stadium, Scott Stadium, and had Nick look around and said, "Nick, what do you think of Scott Stadium?" And 11-year-old Nick looked up at his dad and said, "Dad, it's not bad for a second-tier football
Wow.
program."
Well, lots of people in the state of Virginia would certainly disagree, but
It's no horseshoe.
All right, well, so Dennis, let's jump into the Triple Edge Boys Lacrosse Report. And of course, the district championship's over, the region championship over, so lots of great lacrosse has been played in the past few weeks.
Been unbelievable action out there as we go to the Triple Edge top 10 for the boys. Langley in top spot. First regional championship in 15 years for Coach Brewer. They're 18-1. Just having an outstanding season from start to finish. Robinson team did a great job against Langley, so especially those defensive guys. Mike O'Meara did a great job against the Langley midfielders. Justin Hinton did a great job against Langley's #1 attackman, and Keenan Kevin in the goal just did a super job. 3, Chantilly, they lost to Langley 6-4 in the semifinals. They win the consolation 6-5 in double overtime against Woodson. Kevin Broderick doing a super job with the Chargers. Woodson, Coach John Fitzgerald said that this was the toughest regional tournament he's ever been a part of. They had a first round against Westfield, second round against West Springfield, semifinals against Robinson. That team played so hard this year and came up just a little bit short against Robinson, and then again losing in double overtime in the consolation game. Madison, they beat Langley. Langley's one loss in the season. They lost to Robinson in the first round, 9-6, but that's a super year for first-year coach Rich Hodge over there in Vienna. West Springfield lost to Woodson in the quarterfinals, Patriot District champions. Again, another first-year coach, Scott Setter, having a super year. Then Westfield, they were the Concord number 2. They beat Robinson. They lost to Woodson in the first round, 8-7. Another first-year coach, Brian Dilly, doing an awesome job. Annandale, quarterfinal loss to Chantilly. This is a very young team that's going to be heard from in the future. Bill McGlesko just doing a super job there. Oakton, perennial power. They had a first-round loss in the tournament to Langley. Held Langley to 6 goals, probably did better against them than anybody else. Coach David Will, again a first-year coach with that zone defense. And then first-timer here in the top 10, Lake Braddock Bruins, Coach Price, 30-year veteran with the Bruins. They had a first-round win against Falls Church, 12-5, a Falls Church team that was starting to play pretty well. They lost in the second round against Langley. That team didn't have a bad loss. They lost to Langley, they lost to Robinson, they lost to Annandale and West Springfield. So there you have it. That's top 10.
Well, and as you mentioned, lots of first-year coaches having a lot of success this year, and certainly with the athletes that they had to work with, unsurprising. But, coaching, certainly a very tough thing to do. And we have one of the best on the phone, Coach Earl Brewer, joining us from Langley. Coach, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good, thanks. And congratulations on your team's huge win in the Northern Region Tournament. I know your team very happy. And first question, I want to talk with you a little bit about Ethan Bailey's shot to win the game. I know he was matched up with a short stick defender. I want to know what was going through your mind as you watched that play develop.
I think probably like all the rest of the Langley fans, Monica was just finish it, Ethan, finish it.
Coach Brewer, Dennis Stewart here.
Hi, Coach.
You knew that he was going to be coming back to his right. It looked like the defender went to chase it, and it was lights out from there, wasn't it?
Well, you give Ethan time and space like that. We clocked him, I think, at 89 miles an hour one day in practice when we had the radar gun, and he can bring it. He's got a great shot, and sometimes I think he shoots too precise. He really goes for corners and, those shots that everybody goes ooh and ah over, but it was a great shot. I felt good for Ethan and for the rest of our guys.
Coach, speaking of measurements there, I think when that ball went in the net, you might have had about a 36-inch vertical jump right into the arms of Coach Bill Blaustein. Well, you look like a little Cupid doll down there on Coach.
Well, Dennis, I actually, I told another friend, I actually did freeze for a second because it was just a moment in time, I guess. And then, Bill Blaustein's been with me since the beginning, and our friendship goes back more than 20 years, and Bill's suffered through a lot of those losses with me as well, so I felt good for Bill also.
I felt good for your whole staff, Coach. That's been a long time coming.
Yeah, there has, and there's 2 guys on my staff, T.J. Doremus and Brian Hannon, that were both former Saxons, and both had the unfortunate. They both were in regional finals and both were on losing teams, so they know the frustration and they know the pain it feels when you lose a game like that.
Coach, I think you and I go back to the days of coaching T.J. Doremus in the Commonwealth games down in Roanoke.
Yeah, he was a rascal, wasn't he? And he's turned into a great young man, and I'm proud to have him on my staff.
Coach, one question I asked you after the game, I want to ask you again now so that our viewers tonight can get the benefit of your answer, because one of the most outstanding things about that championship game was the play of the goalkeepers. Your goalkeeper was outstanding. The Robinson goalkeeper was outstanding. So I just wanted to give you a chance to talk about that, because those are 2 young men that just really stood out to me during the game.
When you're the goalie of a team like that, if you let a shot go by, it's over for your team. And both goalies were outstanding. I thought Alex Devlin had Robinson's goalie dead to rights there in the first overtime. Alex was driving. I think he got off a great shot, and I don't know if the young man got a piece of it or what, but we didn't score, and then we had another chance after that, and I just thought, boy, this kid's playing outstanding. But you got to go give credit to Galen too, because I think they had a point blanker one time that he kind of stonewalled him on, and Galen's like that. He's got ice water in his veins, and he likes the big stage, and he and his brother both are just real battlers, or real competitors, and it was great play on both young men's part.
Joey Byrne had an excellent game too, Coach. Why don't you talk about Joey a little bit?
Well, you know what? When I heard we were getting this kid from Gonzaga, I really didn't know what we were in for, and then I got a chance to watch him play in the fall league, and I said, boy, that guy's a force. And he was, he missed about 6 games this year. If he hadn't missed 6 games, I think he would have been a first-team All-Region player. He's big, he's strong, but I think Joey's best attributes are he's really a leader. The kid, even though he's just a junior, he leads our team a lot of times. He's one of the guys doing the most chirping. He's one of the guys pushing the other guys, and he's a dynamic player, and he's a force, and he's made it easier for Alex and Ryan and some of our other big scorers because he's taken the heat off them a little bit. And I don't want to give our scouting report away right here on public TV, but he's one of our go-to guys now. He's
a powerful dodger, and he's a very disciplined shooter. We were calling him the bounce shot man.
Yeah, he backs you in. He's kind of like an old school player, Dennis. You remember the days of guys like Billy Weicker and stuff like that would just get a guy on his hip and back him in, and then when he thought he had enough space to get the ball in, he kind of turns and shoots it. And Joey waits and tries to draw the double and then find the open guy. He's got I think he's got 15 or 16 assists on the year, so he's not afraid or not unwilling to give the ball up.
That was a classic battle between the Robin defender and Ryan Ningard, and Ryan never backed down.
He's a tough little kid. I said that from day one. He's one of the most fun guys you could be around too. And Ryan doesn't upset Ryan if he doesn't score in the game, but if we win the game, Ryan's really happy. He's an ultimate team player, and he's I tell you, he weighs all of 135 pounds, and that's with fishing weights I think in his back pocket, but he's a scrapper, and he's going to be a great college player.
Coach, I'm very impressed with how hard he rides for you guys.
Yeah, he does. He when he loses the ball, he gets upset, and he wants to get it back, and he will run from west coast to east coast, on the field to get the ball back, and he's a tenacious rider. And we've been very fortunate this year turning the ball over on other teams and getting it back and going in and scoring. And as you well know, Dennis, that can break a team's back if you can ride them real hard and get it right back. And Ryan's one of the best around at that.
The other thing I've noticed about him in his development as a player is sometimes he used to settle with getting to the goal line extended and try and reach around and shoot. And now, boy, he gets 5 yards high so that he can make an inside roll or a question mark or just turn the corner on it.
Well, one of Ryan's things is going 5-by-5 a lot. He likes to take this guy out wide, and he thinks if he can get inside with his quickness, he'll try that. But the thing that Ryan's developed is he knows now that he is 135 pounds, and don't try to run through 2 big defensemen. He gets out of trouble now. You'll hear me yelling that a lot. Ryan, get out of trouble, and he does now. He'll take off and get out of trouble and reset the offense. And we're a very patient team on offense, and that's been hard for me to do, Dennis, because I like the running gun. I like to get up and down. I like to get up and down. That's the way our forefathers played the game, right? The Native Americans played the game, get up and down the field. And I kind of have bought into it myself. I'm all for settling it down and working it around and trying to get a good shot.
Coach, I'm not sure if you heard the score, but I just got a text message from Osborne Park where Brook Point won 12-9 over Osborne Park.
Wow, sounds like a good game. Well, I had the good fortune to scout Brook Point back earlier in the season when they played Broad Run, and they were really out of that game against Broad Run. They were down by 4 or 5 goals, I think, and they ended up only losing by 1. And I know they have 2 very talented attackmen on their team. I hope to get a good scouting report here overnight. We have a guy at the game tonight that will give us a great scouting report. So we'll have 2 days to prepare for him.
They've got that young sophomore midfielder who can run and rip it too.
Yeah, and they have a guy on their team that does like the hidden ball trick. He kind of does the throw and holds on to it. And I tell you, of all my years of coaching lacrosse, I saw this guy do it, and he faked me out from the stand. Really a good play. They did it on their extra man play. So we'll be practicing for that a little in the next 2 days also.
Well, Coach, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to following you guys throughout the state tournament.
My pleasure, Monica. Good night.
Thanks a lot, Coach.
Take care.
So Dennis, we've talked about it, but that was just a phenomenal game. Of course, such a big win for Langley. They've been there so many times. They get the win. They break the curse, as some of the alumni were saying. But to talk a little bit about this Robinson team that was ahead for most of the game, Langley waged the comeback. And as Coach was talking about, there was some great play. Keenan Keevan among them, the goalkeeper. Daniel McNulty had an outstanding day.
Daniel McNulty was 2-2. Drove hard to the goal, great vision. He can do a lot of things, and like I've said before, Dan McNulty's been playing since he was a freshman, and he's just a seasoned, savvy player for the Rams.
So we've talked about the final game. We'll talk about, I guess, the consolation game is what some might call it, the Chantilly Woodson game that was going to decide who would get that third spot to head on to the tournament. And two of the best teams in the region also squaring off in that one, a close one. And Kevin Broderick, Chantilly Chargers, get the win and move on.
It was kind of funny. I was getting text messages of the score, and I thought he was just texting me back the score that I had on the Chantilly Robinson game. Same exact score, same exact setup, 6-5, double overtime. And that's a lot of great defense out there on that field between the Woodson and between the Cavaliers and the Chargers.
Well, and speaking of that defense, now we're going to go into some graphics and show everyone the all-region team. And first off, we'll start with the All-Americans. And you see there the only team with two is Chantilly, and it's that defensive juggernaut, if you will, of Steve Gombos and Derek Kagaris back there in the goal. And both of those players richly deserve those honors.
Derek headed to Lynchburg College to play for an All-American goalie himself. He's going to have a great college career. Grayson Dahl from McLean, we talked to him in our under the radar section, in the under the radar.
Who knew how much power we have here, Dennis?
Alex Devlin, who had an excellent year for Langley Saxons. Stefan Kowalski from Jefferson, he's going to walk on at Johns Hopkins University. Ed Reed from South Lakes, also under our radar. Ed Reed's going to go to Gettysburg and play for Coach Hank Jancic up there.
Well, and you see the Coach of the Year, Kevin Broderick from Chantilly, and that is also a very richly deserved honor. Everyone knows the story, losing the 16 players from last year's team. People didn't know who would be stepping up for him, and they go on, they win the district tournament, and then they win the game to go on to the state tournament. Lots of young men have stepped up for the Chargers and really taken the spot of some people that certainly you would call them irreplaceable, but a lot of great Charger athletes on the field this year for Coach Broderick.
They graduated a lot of goals last year, and that team really kind of took on a different personality from one year to the next, from being an offensive juggernaut to really being a defensive anchored team.
And of course, Chantilly, now we'll talk a little bit about who they'll face later on in the program, but you see our Assistant Coach of the Year up there from South County, and then the Man of the Year award. Can you explain a little bit to the viewers what goes into that honor?
Bill McGlesko won that hands down. He was nominated and elected with unanimous. Bill was the president of the Coaches Association for years, did a lot for the game of lacrosse, a lot for the Coaching Association. So, in recognition of that, Bill was recognized as Man of the Year this year.
Well, so you see how the region honors and the region tournament shaped up. You see All-Americans that we have there, and then we'll go on and show you the attack, midfield, and defense players of the year. Not a lot of surprises on this list. Of course, starting Henry Brigham from Washington and Lee, and certainly a national district player getting that honor, a very good honor for him.
Very impressive by Henry. And the great thing is there's a couple of juniors up there, and Will Sobalski and Derek Maltz. Ryan Nidgard, who we just talked about with Langley, he's headed to VMI next year. Paul Tunick from Woodson, he's going to Mary Washington. And
we'll move on now and show you the midfielders of the year. Alex Devlin, another one we just talked about with Coach Brewer from Langley, and then Stefan Kowalski, the Jefferson athlete who was an All-American, Eric Schauder from West Springfield, Kevin Smith from Marshall, and then Mike Turpin, another one of those Chantilly Chargers.
Mike Turpin's an all-around player, does everything for them. He has had an excellent year. Kevin Smith will be headed to Army next year, and Daniel McNulty finally headed to Jacksonville University to play for the Dolphins in Jacksonville.
And then finally, our defense players of the year, Grayson Dahl, that All-American, and then a couple of others we've talked about a lot on the program. so far this year.
We certainly have, and Stevie Gombo selected for the National Senior Showcase, the only player from our region who was. Sean Phelan's headed to Stevens Tech in New Jersey. As we said, Ed Reed is headed to Gettysburg. Trevor Shaffrin from Langley, he's going to go prep at the Navy Prep School.
And then the goalkeepers of the year, no surprise there. Those two young men, two of the best, Derek Kagaris from Chantilly, Galen Cooney from Langley. But we've talked about another outstanding one that will certainly make a case for himself next year, I think, and that's certainly Keenan Kevin from Robinson.
No question. Galen's going to go prep at Northfield Mount Herman in Massachusetts. He's hoping to go Division I.
So those are the region honors, but of course 3 of our teams going on to compete in the state tournament. So let's talk a little bit about the competition that they're going to face and the dates that they're going to be playing for everyone out there who wants to go and check out some outstanding lacrosse. So first of all, Dennis, this Loudoun Valley Albemarle game, I know Loudoun Valley, certainly a team people expecting big things out of, but Albemarle defeating them soundly 8-3.
I was a little bit surprised by that score, and the first 2 words that popped into my head were bus legs. Very difficult to go all the way down there on the yellow cheese bus and get off and play. Loudoun Valley had really felt like that was one of the problems that they had last year, and then here they are, they go on the road down to Albemarle and have the same thing happen this year. Langley played Albemarle early in the year and beat them 10-3, but Albemarle was missing some of their best players in that game, so that game really from April 4th doesn't mean a whole lot.
And then you talked about the Brook Point Osborne Park game that went on, and so just remind us.
It was great. I was getting texted right from Osborne Park with updates from my sources at the game. Brook Point's got a few young, excellent players. They'll play Langley at Langley on Saturday, time to be determined. Robinson will have a home game. They'll play Salem from in Southwest Virginia. They're there, and then Chantilly Chantilly will travel down to Albemarle, and they'll play Albemarle on Saturday. The semifinals will be June 3rd for the boys at Westfield High School at 5 and 7.
All right, and then the state finals, of course, the Spring Jubilee again this year held at Westfield High School on June 6th.
Jubilee.
Well, before we leave boys lacrosse, let's talk a little bit about some of our alums who recently competed in their respective national championship contests. First of all, the Division III championship, you see Gettysburg squaring off against SUNY Cortland. Cortland getting the 9-7 win. A couple of our athletes, our alums, playing in those games.
And Mike Robinson, goalie up there at Cortland State. Kevin Mitchell, captain. Here's a state university in New York. They've probably only got 5 guys on their whole roster from out of state, and one of them is a captain. Also, alma mater to Coach John Fitzgerald at Woodson High School. He's a Red Dragon. That's they call that the cradle of coaches. More coaches have come out of SUNY Cortland than anywhere else.
All right. Well, maybe some coaching futures amongst our alums up there right now.
And of course, Rob Triplett out of Mount Vernon. He was at Gettysburg. He had 8 goals and 11 assists on the year for the Bullets.
And then finally in the Division I Final Four that was going on, some players from Duke and Virginia up there. Of course, those 2 teams unfortunately not making it to the final, Syracuse defeating Cornell in a thriller, but those players competing in the Final Four, 4 of the finest from the region.
Kevin Mayer from Potomac School in McLean, Mike Britt from Fairfax playing for Virginia, Matt Kugler, young attackman for Robinson, also at Virginia, and Mark Wade has had a long career from Lake Braddock. He was an excellent player in high school. It's been a little bit of a frustrating college career for him. He anticipated that he would start. They brought in one of the best players in the country who kind of beat him out, and it's been a little bit frustrating for Mark.
Well, that's it for the Triple Edge boys lacrosse segment. Now we are going to segue into the Triple Edge girls lacrosse segment, where we'll do the same thing, take you through the region championship games and give you a preview of what's ahead. But first of all, let's take a look at the Triple Edge girls lacrosse standings so you can see how the season shaped up so far.
Well, they're in the top spot, no surprise, the Robinson Rams. That team has got some great players headed to a lot of different places, and really they came on in the district tournament and the regional tournament and did an excellent job. Chantilly Chargers at 2. The team is 18-2, undefeated until the district finals. They lost to the Rams twice in the district finals and the regional finals. That team could upset the Rams in the state tournament. WT Woodson at the number 3 spot. They win the consolation game, 16-10. We'll have more coming on the Cavaliers. Madison, 13-10 loss to Chantilly. They lost in the consolation game, 16-10 to Woodson. Amanda Counts doing a great job there with the Warhawks. Westfield, Coach Dwyer, Coach of the Year. They had a 1-goal loss to Robinson. They had a 1-goal loss to Chantilly. They had an overtime loss to Robinson. This team did everything but beat those 2 teams at the top of the pile. Oakton struggled a little bit this year, but I tell you, they gave Woodson a 19-18 game in the first round of the regional tournament. Gene Counts, used to winning, used to having excellent teams. They'll bounce back. Annandale, they beat W&L in the first round, lost to Chantilly in the quarterfinals. Coach Hook doing a super job there, moving along. Langley, Coach Rich DeSoma there. That's a first round loss to Chantilly, 18-8. Stonebridge, Kristen Howard with her team there. Lost to Robinson 20-8 in the first round, but they've had an excellent year. And then South County, first round win over Mount Vernon. Lost to Robinson in the quarterfinals. Liz Schaffner, first year coach, doing a super job there with the Stallions.
All right, so that's the Triple Edge girls lacrosse rankings. Now let's talk a little bit about how the Northern Region tournament shaped up. Dennis, of course, we were both there for the final game, which was Robinson versus Chantilly. As you can tell from the score, it was a very exciting game. Robinson getting the edge as they did in the Concord District tournament. And you see there Rachel Moody, huge star for them. She has been great during the postseason, 3 goals, 2 assists.
You know, it was pretty interesting. Before the game, we talked to Allison Noon, and she talked about how she wanted to get everybody involved, not just her star players. And then when we went out and watched the game, it was her great players that were making all the plays. But then as Chantilly went ahead, when it came down to it, it wasn't the stars. It was the defensemen, Sam Barber. It was the freshmen. It was the other girls, the extra girls made all those plays that made the difference at the end of the game. Where, again, with Chantilly, it was kind of the same roster of suspects.
I think that's exactly right. And one thing that happened was Chantilly's defense, and in particular Lisa Comerford, who has been their straight up defender this year, really zeroed in on Rachel Moody and forced her to have to try to make some plays that, you know, giving some assists to some teammates. And Robinson had the answer for them, and the freshman getting the game winner, such an exciting thing for Katie McHugh.
God, it was such a treat to talk to her after the game. The girl's got ice water in her veins. 14 years old. And here she is getting the game winner in the regional championship. And she just talked about how happy she was that her teammates put her trust in her. So she's going to be some kind of player coming down the line.
All right, so that is what happened in the region final game. Of course, also the consolation game was played. It was Woodson versus Madison, 2 outstanding teams from the Liberty District. And pretty soon, I think we're going to have Woodson head coach Megan O'Leary on the phone. But you see there the score 16-10, and that's a great Madison team. You talked about what a great job Amanda Counts has done over there.
Again, that team was super and had done a great job against everybody. They couldn't get the Woodson off their back.
All right, well, we are now joined on the phone by head coach Megan O'Leary. Hello, Coach, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Well, Coach, first of all, congratulations on your big win over Madison. Can you talk a little bit about that win and what you think your team did really well?
Well, it was playing a team a third time. We knew it's very hard to beat a team 3 times. But it was tied at halftime, and I told the girls that, you know, we need to take it, and they came out explosive in the second half and really dominated the whole second half.
Coach, first-year coach, was it what you expected? Was it more? Was it less? How do you feel about it?
You know, I didn't have any expectations going in as a first-year coach. I took everything game by game, and it's so exciting. I think my girls deserve it. They've been working hard. But game by game, that's how I've been going.
There you go. Why don't you talk about Rachel Oberon for a little bit for us?
Rachel, she has been our spark going into the off season. We played Langley towards the end of our season, and she had 8 goals, and she has just come on strong since then. She's scoring 5 goals or plus each game. She's definitely our spark on attack. Great player. She's having a great year.
And I know during the regular season, Lauren King also, and during the postseason as well, has just been huge for you all. Can you talk about what she brings, not only in terms of offensive firepower, but also in terms of leadership?
She's a senior captain. Her and Becca Geist have been on the team since their freshman year, but she is like the heartbeat of our attack. She runs everything. The girls run everything around her, but she can settle our attack and get everything flowing, but her leadership is huge. She does more for us than just her skills, her leadership on the field.
Coach, where's Becca Geist headed to school?
She's going to CNU. Both her and Lauren are going to CNU.
Oh,
Awesome. That CNU's really starting to take a lot of the players out of this area.
Yeah, I played at Mary Washington, which was another Division III school, and we always beat Christopher Newport when I was there, and I told my coach, they better look out because they got some good girls coming.
Well, Coach, also during the region tournament, you all defeated Oakton, and I know that that was a big win for several reasons. Of course, they're the defending state champions for several years now, and so knocking them out, that's a huge win. And then also, I know there's a little history there, so can you talk a little bit about how much confidence that win gave your girls?
You know, I think it was a huge game, tight game, but game by game, and because I'm a new coach, I don't know the history as much, so I don't think that was a big focus for us. And, you know, every year there's a brand new team on each team, so I don't think that played much of a part in that win.
Coach, I'm going to ask you to be our Fairfax Sports Report reporter right now. Are you out in Purcellville?
What?
Are you out at Loudoun Valley?
Yeah, I'm on my way home. I'm driving.
You're going to have to call us back with the score.
What?
You'll have to call us back with the score.
Oh, they won.
Oh, they did?
Won.
What was the final?
They won by 3, 9, 7 maybe, I think.
Wow. So,
Yep.
So you'll be headed to play the Vikings.
Yes, we'll play the Vikings on Saturday.
What did you think of the Vikings?
They were a good team. I'm excited to play them, you know, game by game.
Exactly, Coach.
Yeah.
Well, Coach, I also want to give you a chance to talk a little bit about your goalkeeper, because I know, you know, to be successful during the postseason, you definitely have to have a good goalkeeper. So can you talk a little bit about her and how she's been playing during the postseason?
Yeah, Carolyn Fritz is very underrated. I mean, she's like our secret weapon. She was huge in the Madison victory last week. She has just been coming on strong and playing really well in the postseason. And when a goalie makes huge saves, the whole team like feeds off her, and she's the start of our attack, as I view. But Carolyn has done an amazing job this season. She's like the unsung hero on our team.
Well, Coach, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to following you guys and watching your upcoming game against Loudoun Valley.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for your time, Coach. Appreciate it.
All right. Bye.
All right, so now we know what that matchup is going to be, the girls' game, Woodson versus Loudoun Valley. So let's take a look at how the all-region team shaped up for the girls. Again, not a ton of surprises here on the attack there, Dennis. Several great players, and then, of course, the Player of the Year, Maggie Kovacs from Langley.
Well, there again, three juniors on that team right there. And again, no surprise, Maggie Kovacs is headed to Oregon next year as the Player of the Year.
And certainly Rachel Oberon, certainly not someone that people were talking about as much during the beginning of the year, but she really has come on for Woodson. That's a very well-deserved honor right there. And then Rachel Moody, the junior from Robinson, we watched her play and we saw exactly why she got those honors, because she was the big reason that Robinson got off to that quick start. Robinson seemed to have the control right there in the beginning, then Chantilly dug their way back, but Robinson finished strong.
Absolutely. Rachel Moody, and she's such a strong player, powerful player, gets to the rack and finishes.
All right, so let's take a look at the midfielders now. A ton of them on the list, all of them names you've heard on this program before, and the Player of the Year this time, Robinson's Megan Dunleavy. She has been so strong for Robinson, and we talk a lot about players kind of shifting throughout roles, and during the championship game, she wasn't doing as much of the scoring, but certainly her leadership out there on the field was important the entire time.
Well, Coach Noon has always said, you know, with Megan Dunleavy, it's not about the goals and the assists, it's about all the dirty work that she does out there, the ground balls that she gets, the way she distributes the ball, the way she picks up her teammates, and the way she leads that Ram squad.
And then, of course, the girls from Chantilly making the list, Brittany Greil and Katie Stillwell for the Chargers. And another one I'm very happy to see is Amanda O'Sullivan from Westfield, because I would not call her an underrated player, because I think she's certainly made a name for herself going to Colgate next year. But you talked about Westfield and how they had all those games where one goal could have made a difference here and there, and she was such a huge part of that Westfield offensive team.
She finished with over 60 goals. She had an excellent year. Again, great lacrosse family.
And then finally, the defense players of the year, and another Robinson Ram taking home the top honors with Sam Barber. And you talked a little bit, Dennis, she also has some offensive skills as well. But Lisa Comerford, we were talking about her from Chantilly, Monica Evans from West Springfield, and then Rachel Pascal from Stonebridge, another great player over there for Kristen Howard, only a junior, so she'll be back next year with Giusti. So Stonebridge is a player that's going to have a team that's going to have a lot of great players returning.
They were right on the edge of being an excellent team this year, and with the players that they have coming back, they're going to turn the corner next year.
We talked a little earlier about our players who were under the radar. You see another one up there, under the radar no longer, is Hannah Longwell from McLean becoming the goalkeeper of the year. And we saw some great goalkeeping during the region championship. On the one hand, you had Kelsey Zink. On the other hand, you had Heather Morale for Chantilly. And those two young ladies, amazing as well.
That was a battle out there between the goalkeepers, and both of them were excellent.
And then finally, as you mentioned, Dennis, the coach of the year, Jim Dwyer, and that is a very well-deserved honor. His team, as we said, just a couple of goals going one way or another. Their season could have been even better than the great season that it was.
They're very, very close to having an excellent season. I really felt like at some point they were going to knock off one of those teams. They just, one goal difference.
So let's move on now and show you a little bit more about what's going to be happening with this upcoming state tournament. So there was the Loudoun Valley Battlefield game. We got the score from Megan O'Leary, Loudoun Valley coming out the victor. And Dennis, I know you know a little bit about this Loudoun Valley team, so we'll count on the coach over here for a little bit of a scouting report.
I tell you, this Loudoun Valley team is one to be reckoned with. Jay Harkey's the coach there. He worked with the boys team. He's got 3 daughters. He came over and worked with his daughters. This team was 17-0. They've played 2 games in the Northern Region. They beat Oakton 16-8. They beat Yorktown 16-4. They had played Battlefield twice already, beat them 16-7 and 14-6. I would have been shocked had Battlefield won that game. This Loudoun Valley team is peaking at the right time. This is an excellent team. They've got dynamic offensive players, and it's going to be a battle with them as they get into these playoff games. Woodson, Loudoun Valley promises to be an excellent game.
All right, well, you heard it here first. That's definitely one that you do not want to miss. So we are done with the lacrosse segment. Again, thanks so much, Coach, for joining us. We always appreciate your knowledge.
It's been a pleasure.
So we will take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll let you know what's been going on in Northern Region soccer news. Welcome back to the Fairfax Sports Report, where we just finished talking about where we are on the Northern Region lacrosse scene. Of course, the region tournament is over. The state tournaments are getting ready to begin, and teams still finding out who their competition is going to be. So let's segue now into the Northern Region soccer report, because lots has been going on in the soccer scene, and so we want to give you the updates there. And in lieu of rankings this week, I just want to go ahead and go straight into what happened in all of the district championship tournaments, because as you're going to see as you scroll down through the various districts, several surprises going on. So I want to take you through each of these one by one to catch you up on what's been going on. So first of all, the Robinson Centerville game in the Concord district. But before we even talk about that game, I want to talk a little bit about how Robinson got there, because it was so phenomenal and interesting, something that you don't normally see in soccer games. And so what happened? The score is tied 0-0 up until the 78th minute. And then Robinson has a throw in. It's Kevin Murphy throwing in the ball. He throws it in. It goes off the fingertips of the Oakton goalkeeper into the goal. Now, of course, soccer fans out there know that when you have a throw-in situation, it's an indirect dead ball situation, and so another player has to touch it in order for that goal to count. So had the goalkeeper not touched the ball, it would not have been a goal, but because the goalkeeper did, it's a goal. Robinson wins 1-0, getting that game winner in the 78th minute. So again, a very heartbreaking loss for Oakton, certainly, but not something that you normally see in soccer games. So we wanted to talk about it a little bit. And then you see there the final matchup in the district championship was Robinson-Centerville. Now, of course, Westfield won the regular season. A lot of people thought that Westfield would get to that final game, but Centerville, too much for them to handle. And then Robinson getting the 1-0 win. Alex McCumbee, the hero, he was the goal scorer for the Rams. And this victory doubly important for Robinson, because since Westfield won the regular season, they could be seeded no less than second in the seeding for the Northern Region tournament. And so the winner of the championship would get the #1 seed. The loser would go down to the 3 seed. And so you see there Robinson getting that big win. But I certainly want to give credit where credit is due, and that Centerville team. Centerville, of course, the team that gave Robinson their Concord District regular season loss right after Robinson defeated Westfield. And so that's a very good Centerville team that didn't get as much press and publicity this year, but definitely want people to know that the Wildcats had an outstanding season this year. So moving on to the Liberty District, you see there Stonebridge, Thomas Jefferson making it into the final. And again, a very similar situation because McLean won the regular season, but then they lost to Thomas Jefferson going into the final. So it was Thomas Jefferson, Stonebridge, a great matchup. And those are, of course, familiar faces to see in the district championship. They've been there several years in a row now. Thomas Jefferson coming out the victor. And certainly during the regular season, Thomas Jefferson had those 5 ties, so a lot of people had a little bit of a question mark beside them, but that question mark has been erased as they are peaking right at the right time of the season. And Stonebridge, last year's Northern Region champions, but only 4 starters returning, so people not sure what they would do this season. You see them, Thomas Jefferson winning. Now let's talk about the Patriot District Championship, South County and Hayfield. And Hayfield is another team that I feel a little remiss because we didn't talk about them as much on this program this year, but that was a great Hayfield squad. And of course, they're led by someone who I think is one of the top defenders in the Northern Region in Lolo Newsom. He's going on to play soccer at George Mason, but of course he's a 3-sport athlete. We watched him play in the Northern Region Basketball Championships back in February. So that Hayfield team, a very good team, and they led for the majority of that district championship game. And it wasn't until the last 7 minutes of the game that South County started their scoring, and the game winner was scored by Max Cleese with only 67 seconds remaining. So South County definitely got things clicking on all cylinders at the right time. Their first Patriot District Championship. Congratulations go out to Eric Gunderman and his team because a great season for South County. Finally, in the National District, Yorktown getting the win, and I've talked a lot about Yorktown on this program this season and about their struggles because, of course, they were one of the favorites coming into the season. They were in my rankings at the beginning of the year, but then their star, of course, Alex Herrera, had so many injuries, such a tough year for that young man who was the Northern Region Player of the Year last year. He had high ankle sprains, both legs, and so he has been playing through pain all year long. He gets the first goal for Yorktown, getting them off to a great start. And then his teammate, Sergio Meja, got the other goal. And so that's a great win for Yorktown. A lot of people may have underestimated them because they had such rough goings in the early part of the season, but they have not lost in the month of May. So the month of May certainly suiting them very, very well. And so congratulations to Yorktown for that big win. Well, so the district tournaments are over now. We are well into the Northern Region tournament. In fact, semifinal games going on as we speak tonight. But let's show you how the teams that made it into the semifinals got there, because first of all, Robinson Edison, you see Robinson has really been coming on strong, and one question mark people had beside them was whether or not they really could put forth that high octane scoring when they needed it. You see that 4-0 win there, and 2 of those goals were scored by Alex McCumbee, so he is certainly someone people in the region need to keep track of when playing Robinson, because you cannot let him get loose. He is a fantastic goal scorer. Jefferson Wakefield there, you see I talked about Jefferson definitely also peaking at the right time, beating a very good Wakefield team that I've been talking about a lot on this program. And then Westfield regrouping after the loss to Centerville in the Concord District Tournament, being that outstanding South County team. Their goalkeeper, Javier Hernandez, one player that I have been so impressed with, Willie Roque as well. So many good athletes over there at South County, even though they have that loss, just a great season for them. And then finally, Centerville Yorktown. You see again, I've been talking about the Patriots and how they're peaking at the right time. Hopefully some players working through their injuries, and Yorktown getting the win over that Centerville team that I have been so impressed with. So the semifinals now taking place tonight. So we do not have the scores for you for what was happening during the semifinals taking place over at Madison High School tonight. You see the teams there, that Yorktown Westfield matchup possibly over by now, and then the early game, Jefferson versus Robinson at 5 p.m. The championship game for the boys will be played this Friday over at Madison High School. Those are going to be great games no matter which are the 2 teams that are in those finals. So definitely if you are free on Friday, that would be a great thing to check out. And the women will be playing as well. So let's give you a little bit of an update on where the women stand and what happened in the women's district tournaments, because if you thought there were a lot of shockers and surprises going on with the men, then in the women's tournament also lots of great soccer being played, some upsets, and certainly some games that were nail biters. So let's start off with this Chantilly Robinson game. Now, people who are fans of girls soccer in the region know a little bit about the history between these 2 teams and know that Robinson has definitely had Chantilly's number for the past few years. That's the one thing Chantilly really, looking towards, and that big foe Robinson, defeating them during the regular season 2-0. We had the highlights from that game on this program a while back and talked a little bit about how Robinson just really seemed to dominate that game, but we really felt like that Chantilly could give them a run for the money during the postseason. Well, you see there Chantilly getting the win in penalty kicks, and it's always a nail biter, always a difficult way for a team to lose, but one player that I definitely want to give the proper recognition to is the Chantilly goalkeeper, Lauren Jankuska, who had 21 saves. That young lady certainly deserves a lot of recognition for what she's done for Chantilly this season. I have been so impressed with her. Look forward to continue to follow her throughout the remainder of the season, and just a great thing for players like Kristen Melchiori and Caitlin Manley, Cortland Bristol, Katie Menzie, players we talk about on this program, to get a little hardware in the trophy case for Chantilly. Now with the Liberty District, you see what happened there. Woodson versus McLean. Now Woodson was the 1 seed. McLean was the number 2 seed, and I've talked about those 2 teams a lot on the program. Of course, we had Coach Williams on the show, we had Coach O'Brien on the show, because certainly 1-2 seed, but those 2 teams, great teams, certainly expected big things out of them. And McLean came up the winner there. You see it there with the 2-1 victory. It was Christina Bettner who got the game winner. But I want to tell you a little bit about how sweet this win was for McLean, because for the last 15 minutes and during the overtime period, they played a man down. One of their players, Josie Seebeck, was ejected due to a red card with about 15 minutes to go. And so they played a man down and got that big win. So that was probably even a bigger win for McLean due to the circumstances, what they overcame in order to beat an extremely good WT Woodson team. In the Patriot District, you see there, probably no surprise in that West Springfield has just been on such a roll for the past few weeks. They have just been, and probably past few months actually, J2 Aluconis's team certainly has a lot to be happy about, and certainly big things are expected from them in the Northern Region tournament, that's for sure. But you see there, they got the one goal. They got it from Jesse Gonzalez on a free kick. A great win for West Springfield. We've talked a lot about Robinson and how certainly a disappointing loss to Chantilly, but West Springfield is another team in the region. There's so much history there, so many championships. It's a lot to live up to for a first-year head coach, and J2 Aluconis has been doing a great job over there at West Springfield. Now finally in the National District, you see yet another game comes down to penalty kicks. The score was tied at the end of regulation, was tied at the end of the 2 5-minute overtime periods, and was tied at the end of the 2 5-minute sudden death periods. And so they go into penalty kicks, and this was a great show for the fans in attendance because you have the two top goalkeepers in the National District squaring off against each other. You have Carla Manger on the one side for Yorktown, and then on the other side you have Molly Wolford for Washington and Lee. You see Yorktown there getting the 1-goal win to get the National District Championship. So again, lots of shockers, lots of surprises going on, and lots of nail biters as a lot of these games coming down to penalty kicks, and we are not done because there's yet one more nail biter going down to penalty kicks that we're going to tell you about in just a second, because the Northern Region tournament is underway for the girls, and in the quarterfinals, some might call this a shocker, some might not, who've been following that West Springfield team, but you see there West Springfield defeating Robinson 5-4 in penalty kicks. Again, such a tough way for Robinson to have to end their season because they are one of the best teams, as people know who follow girls soccer throughout the region. They were one of the top teams this year. So much talent on that team. And so again, a heartbreaking way for the defending state champions to go out, but a great West Springfield team. Amalia Clayton over there, along with Jesse Gonzalez, who I was talking about, are just two of the class of the region. And so I'm very excited to continue to watch them play throughout the season. Now moving down, starting from the top, you see Chantilly moving on, defeating that South County team 4-2. Chantilly just seems to have things clicking now. McLean over Lake Braddock, and Oakton, led by a lot of freshmen, over Annandale. So the semifinals going on tonight, just like with the boys, and then the finals will be this Friday, also over at Madison. The girls' semifinals were at Robinson, but the finals will be at Madison this Friday along with the guys' games. Well, that is it for the Northern Region Soccer Report, but just very quickly want to segue into rowing because we haven't talked a lot about the crew team so far this year, but I definitely want to send sincere congratulations over to Yorktown. The 41-year-old program gets their first state championship, the men's varsity 8 there, defeating their nemesis, if you will, over at Jefferson. Jefferson has owned that event, but you see Jefferson coming up there in the 3rd place position. Yorktown finished behind them only about by 2 seconds last year, and so it was such a heartbreaking thing for Yorktown. You could really see it on the faces of the athletes there, and so a big day for Yorktown. Coach Bacchus over there, who does such a great job, and we'll show you what happened in the women's event now as well. National Cathedral, a Washington, D.C. school, getting the top marks, but Yorktown finishing second, so they do get the distinction of being the top team in Virginia. Now, before we go, a couple of college signings. We want to send out some more sincere congratulations to some athletes who've worked so hard. Dominic Mora, you see there, going on to Augusta State. He played for Brian Metris at Lake Braddock. He will now play for Brian's brother, Dip Metris, over at Augusta State. And Kalia Boston from T.C. Williams, going on to play basketball at Livingstone College. That's only about an hour and a half or so from Tierra Ruffin Pratt over at Chapel Hill. So the two teammates hopefully will get to see each other at some points during their college career. She was first team All-Patriot District. People talk a lot about Mora. Everybody knows his story. Only 40-some points shy of Hubert Davis's school record. And then a couple more signings throughout the region that we want to talk about. George Billy there, the Lake Braddock wrestler, several state titles. His record, very impressive, so we want to share it with you. 177-10 in his college career, plans to compete in the 125-pound weight class. Chris Kamara from Stonebridge going on to play soccer at Lewisburg. And then Jack McClendon, a Langley baseball and basketball player, going to play baseball over at Davidson next year. Finally, closing out with a couple of the girls, we talked about the crew teams, and so certainly want to congratulate Virginia Ratcliffe, who will be moving on next year. She will be rowing for Oklahoma. And then a couple of girls from Centerville, the softball standouts, such close friends. You have the pitcher there and the catcher, such a great story as well. Jess Farrick and Victoria Marvin, the senior standouts from over at Centerville, will be playing softball again next year. They certainly recognized at Marshall they could not split up the dynamic duo that is Jess Farrick and Victoria Marvin, so those two young ladies will remain teammates. And then Beth Ann Nowak from West Springfield will play soccer at Indiana Wesleyan. Of course, her team still competing, though at least tonight they were in the semifinals, but we'll find out what happens from those games later on this evening. All right, well, thank you so much for joining us again. We do want to remind everyone that the Spring Jubilee is going to be held at Westfield on June 6th, so mark that day on your calendar, because if you're a high school sports fan in the region, that is a day you do not want to miss the sporting events over at Westfield. Well, again, thanks so much for joining us. We are off next week, so we'll have our spring wrap-up episode after the Jubilee on the 10th. Again, for Dennis Stewart, I'm Monica Moore. And let's thank the CCI Screen Printing, our sponsors, as well as Pressbox Video, where you can get our games and copies of this program, our website, and Triple Edge Lacrosse, of course, our spring sponsors at Triple Edge, our website at www.fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. You can see our video vault feature, and you can also become a fan of the Fairfax Sports Network on Facebook. And finally, don't forget to email us your news, stories, and ideas. Well, again, thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you again in 2 weeks.